Well, hello there, do hope you're all well. Now, I'm doing a couple of these because I think there's a reason for doing it. It's because for a simple reason, next couple of days I've been, I will be. So like taking my son to work early mornings, and I just find doing stuff like this a little bit easier because doing other stuff, it's a bit consuming, and I'll be going to bed a bit time consuming, and I'll be going to bed early. So doing a couple of these. But anyway, this is a conversation that I listened to today, and I found it truly fascinating. It was conversation was about these vaccine passports. Now, if you ask me what I think about them, I'm more on the fence. It's not really something I'm really going to get pent up about. But he had a conversation, just basically said, what do you think? And you got some really good conversation. Talked to a bloke whose father's proper down the anti-vax rabbit hole, where he just views this sort of thing as, oh, it starts with this, then it'll be the next thing, they'll be restricting your movement, this and that, and it just absolutely mental. He even had a woman from France where she talks about how the situation's going over there. It was really interesting. But anyway, just after the news, James was talking to a guy called Robert, and it all started quite interesting and intelligent. Then it just descended into this absolute madness. And the reason why I found it fascinating is because it's a pattern I do tend to see a lot. Anyway, I'll talk about that after this call. So here we go.
11:36 is the time. Robert's in Brighton. Robert, what do you reckon?
How you doing, James?
I'm pretty good.
First, I'd like to say, listen to Chantal. I admire how she's dealt with sort of the cards she's been dealt, and how she handled the situation. I identify with it. I'm in a similar enough situation.
Okay.
Had to, shelter right from the start, not touch anything, and made the dining room into a quarantine area every time we got a shipment or food or whatever else.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I did want to say one thing, which is I really think one of the problems we have with this entire discussion, and it's sort of from the start, maybe it's where we are today in society, but we just overgeneralize too much.
Yes,
right?
for sure.
I mean, so much separation of two completely different views as opposed to some middle ground where people can actually have differences of opinion and be rational. There's so much hyperbole. And it's like, look, here's an example, right? Anti-vaxxers is exactly the term that you yourself and everybody else is using for anyone who is concerned about this particular vaccine at this point in time. Fair enough, right?
No.
I mean, I can have concerns about the vaccine because
anti-vaxxer is someone who is opposed to it and doesn't want to take it.
Yeah, but I mean, my point is anti-vaxxer probably is a good generalization, which causes so much stir in people that you're against every single vaccine and everything the government does. And now,
it's not my experience.
No,
there's an awful lot of people who are at great pains to tell me they've been vaccinated against polio or TB or whatever else it may be, but they've got a particular problem with this one because they've been misled into believing that it's, I think the phrase they use is experimental. So they've been down that YouTube rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I'm not, and again, but I think there's a lot of people who could be concerned about this vaccine without actually being somebody who is, by the way, anywhere near your pedophile or any of the other kind of theorists, right?
Well, I disagree. I disagree. I think it's just different flavours of delusion, and one is laughable, as you say, but the others are just as ridiculous.
So you think that someone that maybe is concerned about this vaccine for health reasons or lack of longevity studies is a delusional?
Yes.
Really? Okay. Because it's been out long enough to prove that it's really okay? And it's really been through all the testing?
The proof that it is a bigger risk to get coronavirus than it is to get the vaccine is absolutely clear.
Okay. So that's interesting. Well,
so, I'm amazed you didn't realise that. Is it the first time you tuned in?
No, it's not that I don't realise it. It's that if you said, I'm 100% going to get coronavirus or take the vaccine, it's a false comparison. Is
Yeah,
the
but
problem,
no one
right?
said
because
that.
There's plenty of people. There's plenty
No
of people
one
who
said
can
that,
be really
though.
careful
Yes, but no one
and
said
not
that.
get the vaccine. They can continue to
But no one said.
practice
No one has.
safety and
No one
social
has. Yeah,
distancing.
I mean, you can. I guess you could, and that's why I think probably it would be wrong to force anybody to get the vaccine. But you're in favour of isolation. You're just suggesting it should be self-imposed rather than societally imposed.
I'm really in.
So
yes,
you
I'm in
choose
favor
not
of
to go
people
to a
being
nightclub.
careful.
You choose not to go to a nightclub because you've got, quotes, concerns, end quotes, about the vaccine. But you'd be uncomfortable with being told that you're not allowed into the nightclub because you've got, quotes, concerns, end quotes, about the vaccine.
Well, I'll definitely answer your question on the passports, right? Because I know it's a.
Hang on, I
it's a
just
hot topic
clarify
right
whether
now,
did I describe you correctly then before? You've got you would choose
Sorry, go
not
ahead,
to you choose not to go into the nightclub because you're worried about catching coronavirus, but you would object to being told you can't go into the nightclub because you've got concerns about the vaccine.
So I could choose where I want to go to make sure that I'm being careful about my own health. Absolutely.
But it's not just your own health, is it?
I would object to any kind of passports that don't give an alternative for testing negative.
But
Right,
testing negative in as an alternative to the passport is pretty clear. That seems pretty fair. But
because it's funny because we never say that. We keep saying
every time I've done this phone in,
we prove that you got a double jab,
or that
right?
you haven't
And the
got,
fact-
or that you haven't got coronavirus. We have said that already this hour. I think 3 times.
Gotcha.
That's okay.
Which is helpful.
Well,
which is
yeah,
helpful,
but it's
right?
also
Because
repetitive.
That's a big difference, isn't it?
Well, yes and no, because the difference is, of course, and perhaps the difference that you're missing is that vaccines aren't just about your personal health. Because a vaccinated population is an immune population. So the more people...
That's such a falsity.
No,
the vaccinated population is not an immune population. They can still catch it.
Yes, of course they can.
Still pass it along.
Forgive me,
So
immunised.
really,
An immunised population. The more people are vaccinated, the more immunised a population is. So it's not just an issue of your own personal health. And that's the point. That's the distinction between... But they're immunised. So you can never remove it. Well, you have actually in the past with some viruses, but this isn't the gotcha that you think it is. The more people that are vaccinated, the safer... If you'd allow me to finish, the more people are vaccinated, the safer everybody is, which is why the conflation of vaccination with testing is, forgive me, very selfish.
So
you keep talking about your personal health.
I love it. Honestly, I love it when people go over and they want to play the selfish card. But no. Laugh at me, but let me finish now.
No, because I'm not playing a selfish card. I'm describing the conflation of testing with vaccination. And the phrase you've used, I think, more than any other in the course of this conversation is my personal health. We're not having a phone-in, Robert, about your personal health. We're having a conversation and a phone-in, and we've been clear from the start that this is a conversation about public health, which you haven't mentioned once.
So on public health, what happens is everybody who gets vaccinated actually now, if you really stop and think about it, have taken care of their personal health because they're protected from getting sick.
No, again, I'm afraid that I'm afraid that's not true because the people who are least likely, well, you can pretend that you believe that, but I don't have to join in. The people who are least likely to suffer badly from coronavirus are the ones who are being most altruistic and public-spirited when they get vaccinated. It's why it's so important to encourage people who have been persuaded that it doesn't pose a major health risk to them that they must get vaccinated in order to protect all of the people to whom it does pose a major health risk. This is ABC stuff, Robert. I mean, it's been going on for 18 months. If you haven't worked this out yet, I very much doubt I can help you.
Yeah, James, honestly.
Hey, Robert, honestly.
It's a bit insulting to put it that way because, in fact, the people that get the vaccine, it's great. And I think the people who can't.
It's not insulting to put it that way. It's factual, Robert. It's exactly factual. The reason why the onus is upon persuading people to whom the virus does not pose a major health risk to get the vaccine is precisely, incontrovertibly, and completely to protect the people to whom the virus does pose a major health risk. That's not insulting, it's not laughable, and it's not wrong. It's just science.
So, James, the people that actually get the vaccine have now protected themselves. They can still pass it on to other people, whether or not.
And vaccinated people will suffer a lot less than unvaccinated people.
So how are they protecting someone who is unvaccinated or unable to get the vaccine?
No, that's not what we're talking about. People who are unable to get the vaccine, Robert, are not people who've got, quotes, concerns, end quotes, about the vaccine. And there it is.
They can be a combination of
yeah,
the
of course
two,
they can, but that's not
other.
what you're talking about. Society also.
No, in fact, I am.
Society.
In fact, I am.
Oh, okay, you are now, but you haven't been for the last 10 minutes. That's absolutely fine.
James,
to be honest with you, Robert.
I am.
But society also moves Society also moves collectively to protect people who can't get the vaccine, and the more people that are vaccinated, the safer the people. No, hang on, I haven't finished speaking. The safer the people who, for whatever reason, can't get vaccinated are. That again is not an opinion. That is science.
No, how? Tell me more about that. How?
Well, I did say, I think it's now 11:45. I think 3 minutes ago, I said if you haven't worked this out for yourself by now, it's
you can't even express it.
It's highly unlikely that I can help you. I'll tell you what.
No, how can
listen
you?
back to the podcast. I've already explained it twice.
How can someone who can still pass the virus on, even with the vaccine, protect someone who isn't vaccinated?
Because they reduce. Okay, because the likelihood of that happening is reduced by the vaccine.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Vaccinated people are less infectious than vaccinated people.
That is not true. That is not what the studies are showing. It's not what the CDC is showing. It's not what the World Health Organization is showing.
Okay, so why does vaccination reduce infection?
It reduces the sickness that you get.
No. Why does it reduce new cases? Why does it reduce the number of infections?
It's reducing the number of people who are showing signs of.
No. It's reducing the number of people who are testing positive. Why is that, do you think?
Who's going? Are they actually? Do they actually have a study for testing everybody who has it? Because they don't. Well, no, James, they don't.
I think you've had your fun. I think we both know that this hasn't gone quite as well as you were intending, but I hope it's been helpful to people who've fallen for the same sort of crud that you're peddling.
Totally fascinating, isn't it? You could, like I'll say, I remember when I first listened to it, you could say, yes, I agree with yes, overgeneralisation. I thought, yeah, this could be an interesting, but it went from not the interesting call I thought it would be intelligent. It just basically just descended into, well, how can I put it, just stupidity. You can tell he's gone down the YouTube rabbit hole and stuff like that, listening to people who you get the feeling are just more grifters than care about his well-being, and he starts going on about these people about who were ridiculed for having concerns about the vaccine, and stuff he was saying. I'm thinking, I've never heard anybody say that. And when James kept saying to him, no one said that, he still kept going on and going on and going on, and then he moves on to when he realises that his own spiel about his own personal health isn't really working, in everything that he believes is just tweaked with facts and evidence, and he's just laid on the bus, stood in the middle of nowhere, naked with his cheap suit on the floor. He moves on about public health and stuff like that, and you can always tell when people like Robert and people like that are losing the argument. They say, people, when it comes to people like us, they bring out the selfish card. You think, and when they are properly losing the argument, they start saying that the person who were using facts to destroy their argument has been insulting. It's just hilarious. And then when he realises that all his arguments are just being smashed to smithereens, he moves on to the concerns to those who are not able to have the vaccine to help win his argument. And it was just absolutely ridiculous. And the reason why I found it fascinating, because it just reminded me of a story. Do you remember when, before all you Brexit loons start typing in the comment section below, how can you conflate Brexit with anti-vaxxers? No, I'm not. It just reminded me of a time when, do you remember when Tim Witherspoon was touring his Witherspoon pubs up and down the country, you know, for his already converted fans? Well, I remember it was either Portsmouth, then Southampton, or Southampton, then Portsmouth. It was in one of them. And who turned up for one of his sort of like gigs? Well, trade negotiator Jason Hunter. And quite clearly it didn't go as well as he'd hoped, because for simple reason, when it came to the next tour, just in the next town, Jason Hunter was forbidden to enter. He was not allowed to enter the Witherspoons, where he was doing his speech about how wonderful Brexit's going to be. And you're thinking, well, what's that got to do with this? Well, he gradually made his way into Bradford, and my son, the reason why I mentioned my son is because he works in Witherspoons, in kitchens. And I remember one night he'd done a finish, and I said I'd pick him up, so I picked him up. And he's there actually with his girlfriend then at the time. And he says, "Oh, Tim Witherspoon's coming to our Witherspoons on Saturday. Dad, you've got to come. Oh, you'll make a fool out of him. You'll make a fool out of him." I says, "Son, there's no point. There's no point." And he says, "Well, why?" He says, "What? Are you scared of something?" I says, "You'll make mincemeat out of him." And I says, "Son, there's no point." I said, I told him the tale about when Jason Hunter was forbidden to enter the Witherspoons to educate the acolytes. And I also said, it doesn't matter what I say or anybody else says, these people's minds have already been made up. And you can tell with listening to this guy, Robert, his mind was completely made up, even when all the evidence was laid out in front of him. And to me, everything that James said just made perfect sense to me. It never uttered, never moved, did it? He just never moved. And it's the same with people who are, whenever a conversation has ever gone to Brexit, people who voted leave, they will say, "Well, what about this?" And I'll say, "Well, it's because of this and this and this and that and this." And more often than not, they'll look at me as if to say, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Then they'll just move on to something else. The minds will never be changed. And you can definitely tell with a guy like Robert, when it came to this, unsure about this vaccine, whether there's not enough tests on it, he'll never be sure, will he? But that's the reason why I just found that call fascinating, because for a simple reason, it just reminded me of some people who they'll just won't want to listen. And you hear it often with people like that. The conversation isn't a conversation. It's usually people like this guy and some of these absolute lunatic extremists. It's just turns into them ranting, and you don't. Another sort of them people are these mad lunatic immigration haters. They're scared of people coming over here in dinghies. Doesn't matter what you say, you don't get a word in edgeway. And it's same with this guy. He just didn't want to know, did he? As far as he was concerned, in his own mind, he was right. But anyway, hope you found the video interesting, and I'll get back to doing a few more other things once my son has finished his very early morning very early morning starts of the day, because being the taxi of dad, it does take it out of me. But anyway, I shall leave the video here, and until the next time I shall bid you farewell. Take care.